The question we'd given Colin for our first seminar was, why should I care about church planting? Which Colin's definitely touched on, definitely heard his heart, that he cares about it and is keen that we care about it too. We've asked him to answer a second question in this second seminar, and that's, how do I play my part in mission and evangelism? I think most of us want to play our part in mission and evangelism, and lots of us find that hard. How do we do it? How can we play our part in mission and evangelism? That's the question we've given to Colin. Same drill. Colin's going to share for a while, and then he's going to open up the floor. So do just get ready with your questions, and we're going to stop just before 3 o'clock. Okay.
I always feel a little bit of a fraud on this seminar because my wife should be up here more than I should be. But I think also I probably am with the majority that actually find evangelism a challenge. And so I'm always needing to learn and be provoked. So you're not getting an evangelist leading this seminar, but you are getting someone who can empathize with you and understand if it is a challenge. But just a couple of things, and then I think if you've got some questions, because questions are better, we'll go from there. But I think just a couple of things that, for me, that I think are helpful. The first thing is just motivation. And I think sometimes when people get up to encourage us to do something, they tend to motivate us from what they are motivated about. Do you understand? So, and I realized that we're all motivated differently. So some of us are motivated by numbers. Some of us are motivated by relationship. Some are motivated by very deep personal relationship. Do you understand what I mean? Some people are motivated by the poor, i.e. not the poor, but the needs of the poor. And just many other reasons. And I feel like one of the first things is we need to make sure that we're touched by the motivation, do you know, that we have. And therefore, it works both ways. If we are motivating people, we need to make sure that we are touching lots of people's where they're motivated. So that's a kind of people who are trying to motivate. But I think for yourself is actually finding areas. I mean, so like Jesus wept over Jerusalem. He was broken for it. He was motivated for the village people that he couldn't get to. And so that's what I talked about in the first seminar. Motivated by the lost. You know, if you read the things from some of the great evangelists, the guys who started the Salvation Army, etc. They were absolutely, I think it was Booth said, I think I'm right in saying this. He wanted to put some of his church leaders just hanging over hell for a bit. And he realized that would absolutely motivate them for evangelism. So that was his kind of, if I'm right in saying that. So the first thing is just making sure that God can touch our hearts. And because there's a lot of lost people and broken people out there. I think the same thing is using our gifts so that actually so my wife, I mean, we live on a predominantly, well, not predominantly, a lot of Muslims on our road, a lot of people. I talked about our two dogs this morning. When she's walking the dog, I mean, I walk a dog and I just want my own company and the dog. When my wife walks the dog, she knows everybody's name. She knows everybody's dog. She's known as the flower lady because she basically is totally sociable. She buys, for lots of people, an amaryllis for Christmas. She'll go and give them. She has flowers in her. And what I'm trying to say is her gift that's a gift. And starting where your gift is really quite helpful. And I think sometimes if we go too much through a programmed route and a kind of organized route, sometimes it can be okay for some. But I think actually turning what motivates you and what gifts you've got to evangelism, I think is a great way to start. And so that's just a couple of things. So, for me, I love developing people. And so actually getting into, I'd started some business coaching training a few years ago. And just gets you in, I mean, I don't do it now, but you get into other contexts. And so just helping people sometimes. So some of you are good developers. Some of you are good pastors, actually pastoring the lost. And then learning how to bring the gospel in, how to be able to share your faith. But so this is simplistically from the things that kind of help me and help others. Definitely prayer. I honestly feel like we probably don't pray enough. I'm praying more for our people on our road, praying more for kids. Do you know what I mean? I'm literally thinking, if you don't move God, I'm praying, I say, the whole of January, every lunchtime, with churches from all over, and we're going to pray for the lost. That's literally the headline is we're going to go through the Lord's Prayer, but the headline is we want to see 100,000 people saved in Greater Manchester. And we're gathering with everyone to do that. And so prayer massively involved. And I think just the kind of, these are just teasers really, and then we'll answer some questions. Piggybacking on other people, which is for me, so we've got a lady, brilliant evangelist, and she runs job clubs. She's like a Pied Piper with the lost. And so when we started the church plant that she's in, I think I counted probably a fifth of the congregation were non-Christian. So, I mean, for me as a pastor, I've got a mission field that she's brought to my doorstep. And so our welcome teams and our communities, our site, their first job is all the visitors, all the newbies. That's their prime people on a Sunday morning or whenever. So some people can door open for you. My wife door opens effectively with for people like myself. So I think don't be, if you find it difficult, then get yourself in context that actually, someone said, gives you some easy fruit, gives you some easier opportunities. And so, I mean, we wanted to do some work with the poor years ago, and I prayed to the Lord of the Harvest, God, give us a worker to help us in that. Literally, this is a few months later, a couple turned up at our church. This is a few years ago. And I said, they said, Colin, our church has just closed down. We have a small work with the poor. We're looking for a church that will embrace us and embrace our work with the poor. I said, you're the total answer to our prayer. I think nearly 40 people of our congregation ended up doing soup runs out there. Suddenly, we've got a load of people on the front line because of a door opener. And this is where I think I'm weak, but that's why I need evangelists around, people that can help us, train us to use those opportunities, to be able to share our faith, using things like Alpha courses, which we use lots, and other tools and situations. So this is, I say, you've got a non-evangelist doing a seminar, because he was asked to, on this. But I think it's just sometimes helpful to actually get it from a learner's perspective, if I can use that. And, I'm still learning. So that just, I guess, some throwaways, which just may provoke some questions. So shall we just take a few questions?
You said your wife is a natural evangelist, and
Well, I'm not saying she wouldn't say she's an evangelist.
No, okay.
She's a natural people
she's a
person.
natural people person, so she talks about her faith
I'm not even sure she does that.
Oh, okay. She just talks to people.
Yeah, she's a people person. Yeah, what I'm trying to say is she's a door opener for that, yeah.
Yeah. So do people ever say to her, you seem to have a natural gift with people, I'd like to come with you? I'm coming from the point that I decided at one point that I just needed to go out on the streets and to just share my faith. Often the question was, what do you think about church? And then it led to a conversation.
Yeah.
But I'm just finding my way. And I think the fact that I'm just one person going is easy. And then other people say to me, I want to come with you. But I think two people approaching one person is a complication. So I feel a bit stuck that how you take people with you, but actually, if you're two people approaching one, you're kind of
Yeah, I understand
threatening.
that. Just that people hear the question, really. I mean, we've done, over the years, street evangelism and praying for people. I know what you mean by two people can be overpowering, but I think you can be very sensitive. So I think you can have two, but one bit a little bit quieter, if I can use that. Yeah, I mean, I think yeah, I don't know if I've got the answer to that, but in the end, Jesus sent them out in twos, and you do learn in twos. Yeah, don't know if I think though, yeah, I won't go any further. Any other questions? Yeah.
Hi, Colin.
Yeah.
I wanted to ask you, is it always a good idea to give your story to someone when they're just so full of unbelief?
I think your story is... I think, to be honest with you, most people want to tell you their story. So I think the first point it is not them learning your story, but asking them what their story is. So I think there's very few people that if you ask them a question about themselves, unless your question touches something so kind of raw, but most people actually want to feel like you're interested in them. So that would be, first of all, that would be my kind of...
And it comes with two parts, sorry. The second part is, do you have a prayer that you can, when I get the go and talk to her. I get the prompt, go and talk to her.
Yeah,
and as I'm walking over to that person, I'm thinking, what's the prayer I should be praying at this very moment? Do you have any tips?
Yeah, the answer is only what you've just said.
Okay.
I do honestly think prayer and the prophetic are really, really helpful. And I think in the end, when I just answer your first question again, I think when they know you're interested in their story, they're very interested in your story.
Yeah.
We had our neighbours round last year, just after COVID. Things get blurred in terms of timelines. They were fascinated to know our story. Do you know? But it's because, in a sense, we started with their story and inviting them around for a meal and just that. So I don't think it's always just their story, but I think the thing I need to learn better is how to bring closure to and challenge. Do you understand me? And the gospel. I think that's where I need to be with an evangelist more. And I think I think we're in Manchester looking, how can we raise more evangelists up that can actually
well, every time I go back to Italy, I get put in front of everybody. Right. So, and then I have to go back into a second language skill set. Right. So it gets double the portion, really. But yeah, it doesn't matter where you are, right?
Yeah.
What town you are, whether you're in a city in the world, it can always be a moment there.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you.
Hello. Could I follow the conversation there?
Yeah.
What do you think about evangelism without words, but with actions? How we live?
I mean, the reality is Jesus came proclaiming the good news of the good news of the kingdom, and then his actions were healing the sick, caring for the poor, etc. I think they're both. I think the reality is that, and I know the famous quote of, was it Francis Assisi? That's right. But yeah, so I think I feel I'm more comfortable with the actions than the spoken. So I'm very happy to help people to, I'm first to volunteer often. But I think it is a spoken gospel. Jesus came not just to heal the sick, but to proclaim. So I think it is both. How can they hear without someone speaking? So, yeah, I think that would be absolutely my answer.
Hiya, I think this is going to lead on actually from what's just been asked. But as two young professionals under the age of 30, we're living in a culture now where being a Christian is extremely difficult, especially for those of us in our 20s. The culture is very anti-church, and that has very much leaked into the workplace. And I would say that talking about faith and bringing up faith in the workplace can actually lead to not quite a HR issue, maybe not that serious, but it's edging on it. Yeah. And I'd just be interested to know your thoughts, in a time where we're not even allowed to have nativity plays in schools anymore, and we're not allowed to celebrate Christmas in the workplace. What as two people who feel like they need to share their faith, but we've not been called into ministry, what would your advice be?
I mean, it's an interesting one. Just a parallel to that, some people in our church do a really big work with the poor, and they're evangelists, really. And so, again, they have that kind of challenge of, they've got a community centre, which is fabulous, runs 5 days a week. So, in one sense, what they help you, and this, I think it's a similar thing, is outside of that, in that space, you're salt and light. In that space, the way you live is good. Outside of that space, in the pub, other places which you can meet people to, or like we do extra things, you're less HR. Okay? So in a sense, it's finding the place where you can be a little bit more edgy, robust. So that would be, I think, I think that would become quite normative, actually, in terms of the workplace. It's an interesting thing. I mean, our church is full of people your age, and full of singles, and I think what a lot of them would say, actually, quite a lot of people are open to talk if you give them space. And so I think it's a little bit depends on finding the right environment. Now, again, in student life, there's a whole different kind of culture that goes on, and we deal with a lot of young students as well. So I think it's a mixture. I think that's what in my opinion, of people who want to talk, but you do, in a sense, you've got to engage in a broad worldview, and I think that's some of the challenge we have. Definitely for people your age, and actually for our teens, that's a massive, massive challenge, that they're engaging in a worldview that becomes very political and very sensitive and got high emotional. But, it's to bring good news. And in a sense, we've got to be contextual, but gospel. We've got to, I don't know if that helps, but that would be my thing, is finding space outside You know, so building relationships that actually give people want to be with you. That would be a very simple, but probably straight way of doing it. Yeah.
Colin, thinking about church planting as mission, how do you? Are there kind of keys that you use that stop your churches growing from just transfer growth and keep you growing through evangelism and through new birth kind of growth? And I guess the follow on from that is, where do you do you have evangelists leading the plants, or are they part of the team? Do you have who are the people that are like with us finding our place?
I understand.
Yeah.
I think we have. So first of all, I don't mind transfer growth. So just as you know, I think I'm not a purist. I think fundamentally that's you know, I'm not saying you go and deliberate, but actually some of the people who have been transferred to us are evangelists. And so that's, you know, like this lady who does the job club and stuff like that. She came to us. And I think the more and more we're realizing is we need door openers in church plants. It doesn't have to be the leader per se, but you do need people who are evangelists or open a community up to you. And I think that would be where my wife more is, if you understand. I mean, so there's some people who fundamentally have a whole network that are just help you get in. And I think sometimes our church plant's a bit insular. I do feel in the end I'm not purist. So we'll start sometimes and it'll be slow and there's not much evangelistic growth, but we're praying for it. I don't know if that's good or bad. I'm just, yeah. But, yeah. I think as the church generally gets more motivated for evangelism and sees some success, I feel like there's a rising tide of expectation and have a go. Yeah, so. It's the afternoon, so after.
Hi. I just what would you say are the different kind of challenges or things to be really aware of in between starting something new like a church plant or actually joining in something that's already what are the different kind of elements of those to be aware of?
What's the difference between being on the startup and then actually trying to get involved in something that's already started? Yeah, it's a very good question. Probably more akin to the first one. I think part of it is the culture of the leadership. So we are really hot on all our leaders. Their job is newbies, that's new people, and helping new people integrate, which is, you know, and a lot of them are, 50% of them are non-staff, so they haven't got a lot of time. But fundamentally, that is their role, and that actually helps. So in one sense, the answer, first of all, is a leadership thing, because if the leaders are not there, and so just I guess it's all part of it. We have what called a low bar, if you read the book, and a high bar. That means every new person can get involved very quickly. When I first started planting churches, you had to go through a membership course that took an age, and it took you an age to put one on. So now, fundamentally, we had one leadership couple. The girl said she was actually on the door the second week, I think it was. So she knew nobody, but she was actually welcoming people. And I didn't realize this had happened, but she was kind of telling us that, having a bit of a laugh. But she learnt the name of every person who's part of the church, you know. And in the end, they led one of our congregations a few years. So what I'm trying to say is, I think it's a leadership thing, but it's also willing to actually muck in. So I think, you know, the reality is if you get involved, you quickly make friends. You don't make many friends if you're not washing the dishes with them or, you know, so we get people in our band, and we do things that probably a lot of churches wouldn't do, you know. I could tell you a few stories, which I won't on video. But to help people who are sometimes far from God to actually belong and then find faith, but also definitely people like yourself, so that fundamentally you get them on board quickly. But again, it's a big story, that, so, and full of caveats. But I don't know if that answers your question. Most of my answers, you realize, are just sound bites and need a whole unpacking, but hopefully it just at least makes you think.
Hi, I'm at university here, and I'm really passionate about like youth work and like young people. And I think there's a lot of opportunity in that space for like teens, like secondary school age.
Yeah.
And at Oxford, we have like a really good opportunity, I feel like, to bring the kind of student, you know, late teens, early 20s, to have more engagement with the younger ones, which we don't really have much of. So just wondering, do you have any like advice on kind of bridging that gap and making the younger people a lot more engaged with the older?
Well, yeah, I mean, part of it is everything, but all the answers to these questions are a leadership issue and someone getting engaged, okay, in it, and getting part of it. I mean, literally, I told that little story about, answered a question in the last seminar about how do we get our teens when they're spread out in 2 or 3 in different congregations. Well, we've just got an 18-year-old girl. She's actually going to do so she's doing a gap year with us. Next year, she's going to do a foundation course into university. She's effectively, we've just asked her, she hosts a small group of teenagers at 4 o'clock now, just literally started, and we have a 5 o'clock kind of studenty meeting. So we've decided our 16 to 18-year-olds are our big, that's the need we've got. We want to get them engaged before they go to uni. So they have turned up at 4, and we do as much as we can. So we say to the girl who's running it, and with another guy, whatever it costs, if it costs you Domino's pizzas every time, which is, you know, the most expensive way of feeding them, order Domino's pizzas. Make it good for you, good for them, and then they can come to the evening meeting if they want to, which they virtually do. And so suddenly, we're empowering 18-year-olds to look after 16-year-olds, which is, you know, they would be students, so they'd be first-year students. So very simple thing, I guess I'm trying to say is, I think lots of answers to these things are, simple is good, in my opinion. And small scale is good, in my opinion. Then you can scale anything. So I don't know if that's... so it's finding just where... I noticed that, a need and an opportunity. I mean, we do numbers of that, but that literally is my latest, literally happened 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago. So it's a success at the moment, because it's only 3 weeks in. But it will be a great success after all. Is that okay? So that's, but it's absolutely true.
I think I've heard tasters of the answer. But my concern is, as I work relationally, then I'm thinking of the other person and trying to nurture them and disciple them into a relationship with the Lord. So my question is about the what next.
Yes.
When you have actually had somebody accept the Lord. I made a mistake when I was younger of not realizing that somebody had accepted the Lord because I expected them to come and tick some boxes.
Yeah.
But for them, they'd ticked a box. Yeah. But I hadn't expected their way. And therefore, how do you nurture and disciple somebody or a group of people who are coming to the Lord, who are totally unchurched, that don't come in the regular route, our expectations?
Yeah, no, that's good. I mean, just quickly, because I say, again, it's a big question, which someone here could probably answer better than me. But we definitely use things like alpha courses. That type of approach, which are community orientated, and we put our alpha courses on in different places. So we have someone who runs them, but their goal is to help. So they put them in different venues so that people can bring their group. I can use that. So that's a simple thing, but I think there are things like the alpha course and many others which really do, I think, help the non-evangelists really bring people into a space. And I know for a lot of people they don't work, and for us they haven't worked for a season, and now we're seeing a season where we're probably seeing more fruit than ever. But part of it is just seasons. So I guess, well, that's another thing I would say is sometimes don't revisit sometimes things that have worked but haven't. So it's always bringing them into a space where other people, and especially people who can bring them on a bit. So for me, that would be, our last alpha course, I took a young Indian guy to it. And in a sense, he'd really come through. I mean, he was a Christian, but needed that. So that's for me, that was, I was his taxi man, effectively. But I used the group. I don't know, that would be just one. But these are all kind of taster, if I can use that. Lots of people would have a lot fuller answers to these.
Thank you very much. Can we say thank you?
So we're really excited about evangelism. Andy's handed me a mic. Yes, wonderful. And we are very excited about evangelism in our sphere of churches. And we are starting to gather a team to talk about it, to develop it, and to encourage all of you in your evangelism. You may have come along to a couple of our online gatherings that we've had over this last year. But this time, in just under 2 weeks' time, we're going to have some food together here at the King Centre on Friday the 17th of November. That's at 7:30. There's some links that you can, if you go to advanced events on your program, it will take you to that, and it will say Evangelism Summit. If you're just a tinsy-wincy little bit excited about sharing Jesus with someone, then it's for you. Come along, because that space, we want to encourage you in reaching out and sharing Jesus with others. Come along to that Evangelism Summit, Friday the 17th of November, here at the King Centre. It's only £7.50, or if you want to give a bit more, £10 for a curry and encouragement in your sharing of Jesus. We're looking forward to it.